No, my channel hasn't died. It's been hibernating? Winter, innit? One of the things I've been up to during this time when I have very actively avoided making videos is Nanowrimo, and it stands for National Novel Writing Month. The idea is that you write 50,000 words towards a novel during 1 month. That month is November, which averages down to 1,667 words a day. Which doesn't sound that much, but it adds up quickly, especially if you miss a day. It's a thing. It's a bad thing. It takes ages to catch up. In the beginning, I did really well. For the first half of the month, I was on track, and then I fell behind, and then I fell hopelessly behind, and then I gave up. But in the end, I still wrote about 30,000 words, which added up to 50 pages, which is 50 pages more than I had before. I decided to do a video about Nanowrimo because it really did a lot to me and with my head and my perception of stuff. So, you know, there's stuff to talk about, and if I have stuff to talk about, why not talk to you, camera, about that? I work in a pub, and we've got locals, as most pubs do. Several days in a row, different people from the same group started saying that I was glowing. Don't be alarmed, I don't think they meant literally. They started talking to each other about it, and they were like, yeah, you do have like a new kind of glow. And then, you know, forgiving them for being slightly sexist and very heteronormative, they were like, is there a guy in your life? Have you found a man? And I was like, no. And they didn't believe me. Maybe I do have a different glow, because I do feel a little bit different. And I started analysing what that was, and I realised that I was more free. Like, my head space was like cleared up a little bit. There were these thoughts and ideas that had been like clogging up everything inside. They found their way onto paper or the document, and all of a sudden there was all this space in my head, and I felt lighter, and I felt happier and more easygoing, which I've like been desperate for, and nothing says easygoing like being desperate. When I approached writing this novel, I didn't really know what I was writing. I didn't have a plot, really, and I didn't have a plan. I just kind of had a couple of concepts that I was working with, and I knew the type of story I wanted to tell. You have to choose the category or like the genre of the novel when you register on the Nanowrimo website, and I decided to go with literary, which is extremely pretentious, but you know, so am I. I have writing style that isn't necessarily suitable for the full-length novel. I write in like spurs and sections, little bullets of thought and events. And so I decided, rather than limit myself to say that, oh, you can't write a novel because you don't write that way, I decided to see if I could adapt my style and shape it so that it still tells a story, even though it tells it in this like sporadic sort of way. Which I don't think is a novel concept. Haha, novel concept. I think that's been done in many different ways, and stream of consciousness very much is that. I didn't set any goals for me to start creating the story straight away. You just need to get into writing that much every day, so I'm just going to allow the brain to run free and just do its thing. And so I sat down and I started writing, and I wrote whatever came to mind, and turns out what I want to write about is myself. There were stories and thoughts and ideas and events in my life that I desperately wanted to write about, which I didn't know. And so it became surprisingly autobiographical without it ever being that intention. It's not going to be an autobiography though, for many reasons, partly because I don't find that as interesting, and you know, it's all about the concept of writing what you know, and I think I'm going to have to edit it to be less obvious in its attachment to me, just because I don't feel comfortable at being me to that extent. This discovery of autobiographical desire brings me to the most interesting thing I noticed through this process. And it's the fact that my brain has its own thought police. And there are thought crimes that it evades committing. The first time I encountered one of these roadblocks, I didn't even notice it. My brain was heading down a path and then it suddenly turned and headed in a different direction, and so did the story. But as it happened again and again, I started to pay attention. Every time the character would feel any ugly feelings, not so much about herself, that was fine, but about others, my brain would just avoid and reroute. There were things hidden there, forbidden, untouchable. And so I went there and I wrote it. And when those barriers came down, it just poured out of me. All the thoughts and feelings that mean I'm not perfect, that I'm not always kind, that I'm not always nice, that I'm not always good. But it wasn't really me. It was her. She was able to wear the clothes that I cannot bear to put on, and it was such a relief. And now most of these things are never going to see the light of day. They're not meant to. No one would gain anything from that, but to have said them, owned them, gained access to it, it enriched myself to an extent that I had not expected. And that was really cool, but also really scary. What else do I not have access to in my own brain? On a lighter note, a wonderful thing I discovered through this process is that the writing community online is a real thing. And Twitter was such a pool of positive energy and encouragement. There were so many people ready to be there to just encourage you for no other reason than because you're trying to do what they were doing. And that was really, really great. Now, a thing I relearned about myself in this process, which I never really unlearned, is that I just love feedback. Or if we're gonna stop censoring the ugly, I love praise. Please tell me more how wonderful and talented I am. But in all seriousness, it wasn't just that. It was wonderful, of course, to get encouragement from friends and family. People kept saying things like, oh, I really love it, I want to read more, please keep writing, which, you know, is very encouraging. But what was even greater was the fact that I was a bit worried on my end that it became too autobiographical. I was worried that I was just going to hear back, are you okay? But what amazed me and surprised me was that everyone came back with, what happens to her next? What's happened to her before? What's her story? I need to know more about what's going on in her head. They accepted the character and they invested themselves in the character, and I realized I'd created someone. I created a someone that other people could feel invested in, and that was, again, a very surprisingly fantastic feeling, which makes me feel like I owe her to tell her story right. And so where does that leave us now? Well, I'm actually taking a little break from the actual writing since the Nanowrimo section, because now I'm doing the thinking that I hadn't done before November. I'm thinking about the framework. I'm thinking about how to hold the story together, how the narrative is going to unfold, when to show, when to tell, what to foreshadow, what to hint at, all of those sort of little rules in the game to make sure that it becomes a comprehensive and interesting read. So I'm sort of working on the story now, and then when I've got that figured out, I'll start puzzling the pieces I've already written and see where the gaps are and fill them with more writing. But it's really exciting and it's terrifying, but I love it. Thank you for watching, and subscribe because hopefully I'm gonna get some more videos out soon. I'm gonna attempt to get one more video up this year, which is gonna be a New Year's video, and then next year I'm gonna embrace this video thing again, because I've missed it a lot and I've just kept putting it off. The longer you put it off, the harder it gets. But I'm back. I'm in my new room, which I don't think you've seen before, so that's, you know, a little bonus for you. I'm babbling. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. So here's some episode. So I had made some